Hello and welcome. You're watching We Mean Business. It's been a tough last few months for all of us here in India. Inflation is making a big hole in our pockets. Food price inflation has been hurting, and despite all the assurances from the policymakers, inflation continues to be doggedly high. What's been masked in the inflation numbers, masked in a certain way, is that the country has also had the highest ever food grain production during the last crop year that ended in June. Despite the highest ever food grain output, the price of grains that come on your plate every day, refuses to show a downward trend. Today on We Mean Business, we talk about just what is going wrong and why are the masses, people like you and I, having to pay high prices for food. My guest today to discuss the issue, Keshav Rao from the Congress Party, Nalin Kohli from the BJP, Harish Damodaran of Hindu Business Line, his journalist of course, Devinder Sharma and Dr. Ashok Gulati of the Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us and taking the time out to discuss something that involves and matters to each and every one of us. My first question to you, Dr. Gulati, is what has gone wrong despite these bumper crops that we see for this year with the kind of output that we've had? Why are we in the country having to pay such high prices for our food grains?
Well, you have to distinguish food inflation into two components. One, what relates to the cereal group particularly, and the other which is relating to vegetables, fruits, milk and milk products. You have a bumper harvest of grains, 257 million tons. The inflation there, particularly of cereals, is the lowest component contributing to food inflation. The largest component in food inflation is of vegetables, of milk and milk products, meat and other things. So we have to be clear where the pressures are, because the solutions of the two are different. One is a question of weak supply chains from potatoes to meat sector and milk sector, and the other is the grain, and there is enough grain in the kitty for the government. Those prices are stable, can be controlled despite the drought, but the other prices which are not within the government control, unless you improve upon and building the supply lines which are much more efficient, better connected to the retailers or processors in the country, there is no escape from that.
Get your point, Dr. Gulati. Let me ask Mr. Rao this. Mr. Rao, we've heard from the former finance minister, as every month we've had inflation, and earlier we used to have our weekly inflation numbers, the worries that he would talk about, and he also mentioned in the past about the supply side pressures and the steps that the government would take to ensure that that was addressed. Clearly that seems to have not taken place, that has not been addressed well enough, because prices continue to be high despite and because of the supply side pressures.
Well look, Mr. Gulati was very right. Let us not really mix up those issues now. Let us not bring the inflation onto the plate only because we are talking about the prices. Now, as Gulati says, even in the food grains, the paradox today is, which you think paradox, which I don't think paradox at all, because the classroom teaching is different from what exactly is the reality and the ground reality. The question is today, even in the food grain inflation, the brunt, at least more than 60% is taken, as far as the price rise is concerned, taken by the vegetables, on which we really don't have control unless we go for cold storages, we really straighten the supply line and build them up. The one part. Second part is, as far as the grains, today we have a lot of stocks, but that is not an answer to it. What we need today is, we have a bumper crop, but not to speak because there is a supply, but the supply line is not correct. But the cost of production, the minimum support price and the cost of inputs and the cost of production must also include the land and the water level factors which have not been factored in. These kind of things are cropping up with the new modern farmer, who thinks that prices must be much more than what he is expecting. So yes, then there is also the international situation today. Today US has a dry spell, Canada has a dry spell. Canada doesn't have, at least it did not harvest much. South America has a dry spell, Russia has a dry spell, Even in China, their production is so high, the bumper crop is there, but the prices are rising. So this has also in a global economy has impacted our prices. So we need to understand that. But why we are not complacent? We look complacent is we are not complacent because we are allowing, liberalizing even the exports because we are unmindful of the weak monsoons that perhaps lie ahead or better monsoons or equal monsoons. This is because we have lots of stocks. We have sufficient supplies. But when you talk about prices of the such and such stocks, what we need is government to step in. If government can step in and correct its PDS, public distribution system, or distribution system, I think we are in safe zone. So we need not really worry. But it's
Mr. Rao, I'd like to interrupt here. Mr. Rao, I'd like to make a small point here. Some of the steps, Mr. Rao, allow me to interrupt here. Some of the steps that the government could have taken, I'll just give you one example. The warehouse facilities that had to be developed, and the target was, if I remember the numbers, or if I have taken note of the numbers correctly, we were supposed to have improved 19 million tons of additional storage capacity was to be created by 2013. Till January 2012, we've created about 500,000 tons. Mr. Kohli, do you think that the government has failed and failed miserably in its effort?
Well, I think yes, because this was a figure that I was hoping to quote myself. So thank you, Ashutosh, for bringing it in. Let's, I think, look at the entire picture a little holistically. Number one is this government has not been able to look at the inflation of food grain or food inflation in particular, and the RBI figures are clear. If you look at only the period from September 2008 up to say October 2011, that's 3 years, every month food inflation has been over 10%. And if you look at it further, the vegetables component, as you know, early in the program we heard, that component has been close to 17, sometimes 20% as high. Now look at the irony. A few months ago, potatoes were being thrown on the street for vehicles to drive over because there was no fair price. And today potatoes are 10 times the rate what it was 4 months ago. Now let's look at the next picture. Is when we're looking at food grain production in the last decade, and of which about 8 years we've had the Congress-led UPA government, your food production in cereals has gone up by 20%, almost to 257 million tons, as just now your panelists pointed out. And at the same time, you have a storage capacity of only 62 or 63 million tons. A target of 20 million would have brought it to about 82 million tons. Now this year it is expected anywhere between as little as 10 million tons and as much as 20 million tons of food grains is going to be stored out in the open. Now when it's stored out, and out of the 63 million tons, we are not sure how much is already covered and kept in places. That's not fully safe in that sense.
Get your point, completely get your point. Let's just go across to Harish Damodar. Harish, as you look at these numbers, and when you look at it from, when you just step out and look at the numbers, have we done enough in terms of taking care of some of the supply side worries that could actually improve the situation, improve availability in the market?
To be fair to this government, I think I would say that in the last 6-7 years, there has been some kind of a production rebound. You check any crop, you see wheat, you see soybean, you see pulses, even pulses for that matter. You know, something like 18 million tons which we are doing, and same thing whether it is milk, whether it is potatoes, like for example we are now doing something like 40 million tons of potato. So it's not true that there has been no supply side response. There has obviously been a supply side response to the prices. So when prices are good, and what has happened, basically what this government has done is basically it's got the prices right. You know, so and this is a point which I think Dr. Gulati keeps stressing. You know, now you need to get the markets also right. So as far as production is concerned, I think there has been some turnaround, definitely much better than what it used to be in the say early 2000s or the late 90s. And there is definitely more money which the farmer is today making. So the challenge really is now, I think, in the costs. The costs are shooting up now because fertilizer prices have really shot through the roof, especially non-urea prices and labor. So obviously some of these costs are going to be passed on. I mean, so the rest, I mean, beyond the point, I don't think you can blame the government for this. Yes, you can say that between, say, the farm and the whatever consumers, you need much faster moving assembly lines, which will take the produce directly from the field to the consumers. But otherwise, if you see by any measure, you look at for example sales of tractors. Today I think annual sales of tractors is about 5 lakh tractors, whereas it used to be hardly some 2 lakh till early 2000. So definitely there has been a turnaround as far as production is concerned. But yes, the marketing, the distribution, these things definitely have not improved the way it has happened. And the other aspect is, see, food still accounts for about 30% of average private expenditure, and in the case of people, it will be 50% or higher. And unlike other commodities, it's difficult for food the consumption to come down. So which is why for even if your production falls a little by 10%, there is a tendency for prices to go up by 100%. So.
Okay, point taken. Harish, there, come to you, Mr. Sharma. Between the farm and the folk, as many people are used to calling, where are we going wrong? That is really pushing up, because ultimately speculators are taking over and it is hurting people like you and I.
Well, I think as you said very rightly, speculators are taking over. That's one aspect. But if you look at the situation that has been described by the panelists, they are right, very right, that cereals, we have no problem. In fact, there is no reason why, in fact, the prices are not shooting up the way they are shooting up in fruits and vegetables. And in the case of other commodities also, fruits, vegetables and pulses, I see no reason why the prices should be going up. It's always easy to say that there is a supply-demand mismatch and there is supply constraints and so on, because whether we like it or not, there is an effort here in this country to justify FDI retail as if that's the answer for everything. Now, unfortunately, what is not being looked at, the only factor that I perceive is responsible for the rising food prices is the government's inability to regulate the markets. When I say regulate market, means wholesale market and the retail market. Now, that is where you need the danda, and you don't want to use it because it goes against your market principles. So you think the market will correct itself. The market is not correcting itself. That is where you need a tough regulation to step in. Go to Azad market. Go in the morning 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. You will see the stuff that comes as a wholesale market, whatever it is, and you buy after 1 hour from just outside the Azad market. There's a gap of 200-300% on an average day. So that clearly tells you that the entire manipulation takes place there. Nobody is addressing that issue, because these are the people who are politically very strong. They also are feeding the political parties. Nobody dare touch them. Now that is the issue which nobody wants to hit at, and we always blame that if we were to have FDI retail, we are going to have like the Surf Excel. Surf Excel hai na, so we believe FDI retail will take care of your wastage, your supply constraints and so on and so forth, which I think is unfortunately very wrong.
The former finance minister seemed to indicate main hoon na, and
yeah,
that's what he seemed to indicate. Dr. Gulati, if I may come to you, the point that the middlemen sometime are pushing probably the envelope and actually cornering a large part of the profit. With all the different legislation that we have in the states, is that one of the core issues that needs to be addressed to curb this rising trend in food prices, and as you correctly mentioned, more in terms of perishables rather than food grains?
The situation is that at present the law says that farmers have to go to the mandi and sell it there. And if, as Devinder said, that go to Azadpur market or Washi market, you look at the commissions and the amount of bidding that they do 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and what is the commission they get for that. So there is an unduly high proportion that is taken away from the value chain. What you need to do is create farmers groups at one end, do the aggregation there, do the washing and cleaning and packaging right there, and then connect them to the processors or retailers. It's not a question of FDI. Even domestic players can do it. But what we need to do is to compress the value chain, and that is when you will take away about 20% margin out of that, and the prices can come down. Now, unless we understand that process, Whether foreigners do it, domestic players do it, or cooperatives do it, whosoever does it, the issue is compressing the value chain, making it much more. So there is an institutional engineering that you need to do, but it requires huge investments in building that value chain. It's not going to be easy. What did we do in milk? Milk, we created a value chain which was connected to the retailers, and farmer segregation was done, but then the processing, first the chilling plants were put in place. So those types of cold storages, reefer vans, and all that logistics has to be made, and that would require huge investment. But first change the law. The APMC needs to be changed. I think we have been talking about this for 8-10 years. It's high time to act. I don't think that a danda, what one of the panelists said, is the way to go and manage a market economy. This is not 1950s or 60s that you can do that. It's backward looking action. What you need to do is to compete with the trader. If you feel that there is going to be a shortage, you can import from other places, have some buffer stocking, and compete them at a lower price. That's the way to manage market economies. If you don't have faith in that, go back to Soviet Russia days, 1950s and 60s, and do the danda. It will only raise the rent seeking of the Inspector Raj.
Since you talked about this belief in the market principles, belief in the market will decide the price, and if it's done efficiently, Dr. Gulati, just an add-on question to that. There is some talk that the futures trade in some of the products where we're seeing disproportionate increase in prices could actually be banned. Is that the right step?
I don't think so. They are basically messengers telling you what the situation is going to be. Now there could be some rigging at one point or the other. You can neutralize by imports through some other means rather than banning all this. I don't think that's the way we can handle the market economies. It is our own failure to understand how market economies function. On one side we talk about liberalization and then go back on controlling everything. That is going to create a mess in the system.
So is this an administrative failure more than a market failure?
No, I think it's also from the ideological point of view. It's very easy to say that because you have a danda, so you are going back to Soviet days. Let me complete. If you're going back to the Soviet days. Now, if you don't have a danda, if you don't have a regulated markets, then you suffer the ignominy of or having higher prices. Then why are you complaining? That's the point. No, you have two choices: whether you want to regulate the prices or you don't want to regulate the prices. Now, to future trading also, the government is now wanting to clamp down on future trading. I think it's an excellent step. It should be done. Agriculture commodities should not be there at all in the future trading business, first of all. If you have seen, I'm sure Ashok Gulati has read the reports, the UN itself has said that the 2007 food crisis was 70% because of the future trading in commodities. Now, if that can cause riots in 37 countries, I think there's a need to come on, rethink about this entire market economy, market thinking, market sentiments. I think it has gone too far now. My only worry is, or my only concern is, that if you are talking about market will correct itself, then please don't complain. Let's stop complaining. We know how the prices will zoom. And if you really want to bring down the prices, you can do it. You have to have regulation. This is no justification of saying that we go back to the Soviet era and so on.
Dr. Gulati, ban or no ban? Which one would you go with in case the prices are rising?
Let me respond to this panelist. The question is getting the markets right. At present you have laws which don't allow the functioning of efficient markets. Then where are the markets? You are posing controls all over. Markets are not functioning. Markets are not functioning properly. So that is where the effort should be, to make them function efficiently.
Okay, Mr. Rao, the whole idea of starting large-scale futures trade in commodities and agricultural commodities, that was widened during the time when the NDA government was in power. So, and it needed refining certainly as we went on. Have we gone the right way? How do you see it?
Well, let me put it very straight. First of all, regulated market does not mean danda, or liberalization does not mean anarchy. There has to be some kind of a social responsiveness and responsibility to bear. The question today is about the real villain is the future trading. There are two schools of thought. I would not like to get into pit myself against another panelist, a learned panelist who does not believe in this theory. But nonetheless, today the government has banned certain items in the food from the future trading. And I have been pleading in the parliament always, the future trading has always been playing some kind of a very bad role or whatever it is. Now the question then is about you talked about warehousing. It is true, we have today only 62 million ton storage capacity. But what exactly is procurement? Procurement, we put it in the storages for a buffer. But today the procurement should be for the sale, for the market. So the supply line at that level has to be branched. As one of these panelists very rightly said, you have to create a new mechanism where what is arriving at the market, whether regulated or whatever it is, the market, they really go down to the retail shop. So this unfortunately, though I do not undermine the importance of building a bigger, larger storage capacity in this country, at the same time do not always complain on the storage. The storage is, we have today something like 34 million tons, something like 42 million tons today. They are sufficient, more than mandatory buffer. We have that kind of a thing. But everything comes to the storage, everything wants to come to warehouse. It is only creating a buffer, not going into the market. So let us create a mechanism. That is, the moment there is a procurement, then it is transferred. Not the FDI please. It is transferred and create that kind of indigenous mechanism as someone suggested just now at the regulated market. That will help us. So look at this entire thing from the prism of the prices. The prices today, the exports are there. Why? This middleman which you talk is another villain who is playing a worse role here.
Mr. Rao, let me go across to Harish there. Harish, we saw the example of wheat, rice and one more commodity where export was banned. My point is, one administrative step like that, and we've had examples of other products, sugar and others which have been banned. How does it exactly help in ensuring that the marketplace is functioning like a marketplace should, and it's not always administrative intervention which is driving prices?
See, the first thing the government should realize is the consumer's best friend is the producer. So if you want, if you want some production of any, if you want something to be supplied to your plates, you must ensure that the producer has the incentive to produce. And what these export bans and all have done is they have completely disincentivized him from producing. So I don't see any sense in all these export bans, especially sugar, absolutely no sense. Wheat, no sense. Cotton, it was the worst ever move. It was completely done to please the textile lobby. So farmers should have the incentive to produce. So once you look at the producer, everything you should look at from the producer's side. Once you do that, like for example, this entire debate about futures, my whole point is, where has the producer benefited from it? So even tomorrow, if futures is banned, I don't think one needs to shed any tears. So once you look at the producer, and once you recognize the fact that the producer is the consumer's best friend, I think things will start fitting in their place. The problem comes from all these things, like for example guar futures. I don't think it has benefited any farmer. I don't think even potato futures have benefited the farmer. So it doesn't matter. I think we have got our priorities wrong. What we should have, even in the case of futures, we should have actually concentrated more on setting up warehouses. Then you set up warehouse, then you have warehouse receipts. Then you have bank financing linked to that. You give the farmer an option to sell forward. Whereas I think we basically started off with the speculator, with the trader. See, that is a problem with us. But once you look at the farmer, once you look at it from the side of the farmer, according to me, everything else will fit. So whether it is whatever changing your APMC laws, you look at it from the point of view of the farmer. The one good thing, as I said, which this government has done, it has got the prices right, and because of which your production of everything is at a record, like 92 million tons of wheat. So once that happens, then I think everything else will fit in place. This is this is my feeling.
Okay, now let me quote a housewife that I spoke to some time ago, and Dr. Gulati, I'd like your attention to this. Here's what she told me. Tomatoes are making me see red, fruits are not the apple of my eye anymore, and just about when I go to buy vegetables, I get a hole in my pocket. From an end consumer's point of view, that is a complete mess.
Sure, I fully endorse what that house lady is saying, and that's the reason I'm saying that we have to invest both in institutional engineering of the perishable commodities. You need to directly connect, because that's where the savings lie. There is a very long chain, and the commissions and the other wastages that are happening in the value chain, they need to be reduced, and that will require investments, not type of export bans or not type of controls. You need to connect. One more thing that I would like to place on record here is that there are other factors also putting pressures. Look at the deficit financing in this country. That has not come into the picture in the debate. If you are having such a high levels of deficit financing and too much money really floating around, this is what is also causing overall inflation, including food inflation. So both things have to be tackled. One, deficit financing on one side, and you have to have a better supply lines and investment in that, and connect the farmers with the consumers with a compressed value chain. Cereals, there is no problem. There is ample in the government stock and it can easily handle. But where the government has very little control of fruits and vegetables and milk and others, even if government wants to control, it cannot have the wherewithal to control it. So I think there is no escape but to build value chains much more efficient at a much higher priority. I think we have been talking this for endless years, and we have missed that opportunity.
Okay, let me just give some numbers to you, Mr. Sharma. Here's what I figured out. This is a report from CRISIL. The food index has more than doubled, and this is the time they're talking about April 2004 to April 2012. In 8 years, food index has more than doubled. Among 60 prices, 60 food items that they researched, only the price of ginger has fallen. Wheat prices are up and rice prices are up nearly 80%. I know I'm doing Mr. Kohli's job here, probably for the opposition, but I'm probably helping him with those figures. But these are numbers, these are hard numbers that are speaking. Where is the government going wrong?
Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. You know, this argument that, you know, if you have this supply chain, all these processing and all these things, bottlenecks removed, things would ease up. Is easier said than this. Is more of an academic assumption. You know, let me answer that. You know, in India we have now small chains operating in India. You know, right from the Reliance Fresh to a number of other companies. I don't go to them, so I don't know more about them. But I recently saw a report of NABARD doing a survey in Hyderabad, and the study says very clearly that the prices in these chains, you know, these retail chains, is 15 to 30% higher than the open market prices. You go to Bangalore, you find there's a study done by the Horticulture Institute which tells us that, you know, the pesticide residue in all the vegetables that they have they've done a study in all these malls is higher than what is there in the open market. Now that clearly tells you that, you know, the expectation that we have from these kinds of chain is also not working. It's also not delivering, because the reason is simple, because you don't want to regulate the market. That's the point I'm trying to make. Why are you shy of telling them that you behave? If you don't behave, you can be thrown out or be held accountable.
So
that
start
is where
with the APMC straight, you would say?
Start from APMC, because APMC there's a cartelization operating. We know that. And nobody wants to break through that cartelization because it benefits the political parties. And so whether it is A or B, everyone is benefited out of that. So they are very happy. Now the point is that whether, you know, we by just having warehouses is a very important component. It should have been done. There is FDI allowed in warehouses. Nothing is happening. The government has no money to set up warehouses, but it has all the money to set up panchayat ghars in all the 2.5 lakh panchayats in the country. It shows the priorities of the country. You know, why do we need panchayat ghars compared to the, you know, the grain storage godowns? You know, why can't we have 2.5 lakh godowns in this country? Convert them into godowns. That's the priority. I think the nation has to realize. The other point you are trying to make is, and I think some panelists have raised, is about export-import. You know, it's very, in some commodities, yes, there is no problem, whether it's cotton or sugar. But what about wheat, rice and the staple foods? You know, India is a country which has the largest population of hungry in the world. No government dares to feed the poor. Why can't we stop the export of staple foods for all times to come, ensure that our population is well fed? That's the responsibility of a nation. We just can't say leave it to markets. It's the social responsibility which the governments must undertake.
Okay, Mr. Rao, one point, since Mr. Sharma mentioned about the hungry people in India, one number that I picked up, India is ranked 67 among 81 nations on the Global Hunger Index, 65 years after independence. Isn't that a shame for the nation?
It's all right. That kind of a rhetoric can come in 66 out of 88. That is all right. But let me understand, Mr. Sharma also, I think, over the previous speaker, London man, did say one point. Let us not add some kind of a rhetoric to it, but what he says is only academic, too academic. Otherwise, I do agree that the price have really doubled, nearly doubled. 25 at the vegetables level, and the cereals 50 in the last 10 years. But question, how many of us have died of hunger? How many hunger deaths you are trying to show? You might be showing suicide deaths of the farmer who is not able to fulfill his debt obligations. So the question today is there are also money in your pocket, but I am not trying to immediately support.
Mr. Rao, a lot of that is not reported because traditional media and a lot of...
See, that is why even if I am saying I am not a votary of it, nor I am trying to support the argument, not present the argument, not part of the argument. I am a cotton grower. Now today the cotton was sold outside, what you say is the cost is 9,000 rupees, but what I get is 3,000 rupees take home. Now that means what exactly the earlier speaker did say, unless you have a market regulated mechanism where even the intermediary, even the trader who is stepping in and the forward trading which is factored in, these are straightened. Unless the market is put right, we will not, the producer will not gain, the farmer will not gain. So this is a total thing from right from the farmer down to the plate. Now this has to be straightened. Not that means one thing is we have very good as far as the supply is concerned, stocks are concerned, the line has to be straightened, the demand either is a constant or growing can easily be taken care of. I think as far as the regulated market is concerned, today the commodities regulator has been asked to submit his report of future prices. Now second, we have today monthly based monitoring as far as the prices are concerned. But that is not an answer, but that at least gives you focuses what exactly could be the problem so that we step in for the mid-course corrections.
Okay, before we head into a break, one comment from Harish as well. Harish, so here's the situation. We have bumper food grain production where prices are still very much under control. We are not quite doing a good job with some of those perishables part of it, and the infrastructure part of it where we need the warehouses, the supply chain and the investments in processing of that food, that looks to be pretty abysmal. So while we are discussing this today, the problem may again crop up with another crisis when it happens, as and when it happens in future, isn't it?
Yeah, I think basically we need to look at what happened in milk. You just think of it. I mean, it is a perishable like anything else. But what did we do through Amul and the NDTV? We did precisely the thing which Dr. Gulati said. You know, you aggregate all these small farmers, you aggregate their produce, and then you combine them and then you sell. See, like for example, the milk which I buy, the full cream milk which I buy for say 38-40 rupees in Delhi, the farmer there, he gets paid about 32 rupees. So he is getting a good share of the produce. In fact, the kind of model which I would have in terms of value compression is not the Walmarts and the whatever Tesco's. It would be more of the Amul model. I mean, I would say it should be a value compression from below and not from above. And from above it will never happen. You look at even the US or anywhere, you go to any of these supermarket chains, the farmer's share is hardly some 16-17%. In fact, in India the share is actually high. It's pretty high. You look at, for example, if you look at sugar, I think the farmer would be getting at least about 25 rupees. I mean, if you work it out backwards from the sugar cane. In the case of milk, he's getting a good share. So generally, you would find the farmer in India is getting about 50% of the share. It's only in vegetables and all and fruits where he's not getting a good share. So even when we talk of compression, value compression, we should be clear what we are talking about. Definitely, I don't think the Walmart route and all. I mean, I won't ban them, but I don't expect great things from them. That's how I look at it.
Okay, gentlemen, let me head into a very short break. We'll come back and carry on the discussion. You're watching We Mean Business, and we're discussing bumper food grain output and high food prices. Burning issue, something that impacts everyone, you and I. Welcome back. You're watching We Mean Business. We are talking about the bumper food grain production that we've had, and despite that, food prices have been pretty high, and we're discussing this with some very important voices. Let's move on now, talk about some of the input part of that, what goes into the food grain production, into the perishables, the vegetables and fruits and everything. And of course the plight of the farmer also, we're going to talk about that. Dr. Gulati, I'd like to come to you about that. If we look at some of the trends, and we briefly referred to that as well, the input costs in terms of fertilizer, input costs in terms of the seeds that are going, the quality of seeds, and whatever is being sold to the farmer in the form of inputs, that has been going up. Whereas if we take a food grain specifically, that price has not been moving up that sharply as the input part of the cost for him is increasing. That again is a crisis of sorts in the making. How do we need to address this?
Yes, I think one of the biggest inputs into agriculture is labor itself. And last 3 years, the rural wage rates have gone up by 73%. And then on top of that, you have the fertilizer prices, P and K particularly, going up by more than 100% in the last 1.5 years. You have pesticides going up, the seed rate going up. When you look at, if you want to do just cost plus pricing, then the administered prices that we recommend to the government, the minimum support prices, would have gone even much higher. But you also look at where the demand supply mismatches are, and at present we are in surplus of wheat in particular, where it was difficult to find even an international market. Today luckily the international prices have taken an off, and you can do that. And at home, even if you are selling through the public distribution system at 5 rupees or 6 rupees, and the government, central government is allocating more to the state government, still the public distribution system, which is one part of the supply chain which the government in a way controls, is not able to lift the full allocations that are made from the center. So the problem is that you have the grain, excess grain, because of bumper production, which was very unexpected. Rice can go out of the country and get you some money, $5 billion we have got, but wheat was difficult, and you can sell it at a lower price, but still it can't be consumed. So on one side, you have to look at what is happening to the demand supply pattern. You just cannot do the cost plus pricing without looking into the demand situation in the economy. The demand pressures are building up more, as I said, in the perishable segment, and in relative price structure we will have to shift the focus more on edible oils. That's number one. We have imported last year edible oils worth 46,000 crores plus, and pulses, we have imported more than 8,000 crores of pulses. So these are in short supply, and the demand is increasing pretty fast, particularly for edible oils. So you need to restructure your price vector to favor these crops. That is one of the lessons that we are listening. So long as you are price competitive internationally, you can be import substitute, efficient import substitute. But the other segment, which is the perishable segment, as Harish said, what we did in milk, we need to do a similar story and a similar revolution in fruits and vegetables. And I fully subscribe to it. It's not just the Walmarts or anyone. Anybody can come in, but we have to devise our own structures of connecting the farmers, producers, organizations. There is an agency called Small Farmers Agribusiness Consortium. We can use that, scale that up 10 times, and then link them to Kendriya Bhandars of this country, to public distribution system, fair price shops of this country. Somebody has to take an initiative to compress the value chain, and don't wait for Walmarts or Tesco's to come and do that for you. We can do ourselves. We have shown to the world how the smallholder economy in the milk can be the biggest producer and an efficient producer.
While talking about the inputs, Mr. Sharma, when you speak to the farmers, when you see the numbers, how, if I may use the word bad, do they look? How much has that increased and how is it hurting the farmer, if you can give us a sense of that?
I think as Dr. Gulati rightly said, the prices of fertilizer, especially DAP, have gone up phenomenally, and that is hurting the farmers. And
plus we're deregulating the fertilizer sector as well.
Well, as I said earlier, we should not be complaining, because that's what market does. So once you open up and you liberalize the market, that's what it does. So far we were controlling the prices. What is wrong with controlling the prices is my basic question. That's something which we are okay when we are talking of inputs. But when it comes to the output, then we say no, we should leave it all open. Now, anyway, my point is that we have to regulate at every step. Now, having said that, that's a huge cost, including the labor cost that the farmers are now additionally incurring, and that, of course, as Harish also said earlier, it's being reflected in the kind of price rise that we see today. That, having said that, and also the issue of that we should go in for a cooperative structure like the Amul, I think is very well said. But I don't understand what Mr. Gulati said is so apt and so desirable for India. Why is it that Mr. Anand Sharma, the Commerce Minister, is going around the world and also going around the states lobbying for Walmart and not lobbying for building up an Amul kind of a system? It's because not only him, all our mainland economists are also suggesting that if Walmart comes into India, that's the end of everything. We don't have to worry about anything. Now that's the problem. I think if people like Ashok Gulati and others join hands and raise this voice that let's build up that. I think that is what is required. I don't know why we go on saying it. I have also been writing about it for last 30 years. It doesn't happen. It's not in the priority of the government at all.
So with a $450 billion revenue, if that was the solution, the world's problem should have been solved by now.
Well, if $450 billion is the output, $420 billion is the output of Walmart, and if they were to give employment, they only give employment to 2.1 million people in America. So if they can't give employment in America, how do you expect them to give employment in India? So there's a huge question. I think it's a debate which needs to maybe suitable for a different time.
Sure. Mr. Rao, since you mentioned about cotton and that's specific to that cotton issue, how are you seeing input? That's obviously not part of food, but that your experience will give a sense of that. And the second point that Mr. Sharma mentioned, please let me complete. Mr. Sharma also mentioned, why does the Commerce Minister have to push the case for Walmart? Within the party, has that message been conveyed that the government wants to push the case? If they can't make the case themselves, why does the government need to push their case?
Well, I tend not only tend, I'm happy to agree both with Gulati and Sharma fully. As a matter of fact, I was heading that committee on the FDI, and where we said no. So I'm asking Mr. Sharma, instead of putting a blame on the government and all the parliamentarians, let him go through the debates. If today the Walmart or the FDI had not come, because we had held the same view which is today holding and trying to talk to you. Question is, we had market, we had a cooperative structure, but we could not develop it to a Amul model. Why we fail is again the grassroots politics. I mean, grassroots politics means, don't take it as a negative term. It is the type of people, we are not that well informed. The rural robust farmer is not able to respond to the needs of the day or set himself to the situation. Now, we are looking for this market, the NAP and other things, but they have not done well. It is like RBI report saying cooperatives have failed, but they must succeed. So this is what we are looking for. This is what exactly the committee, the standing committee has recommended. So today we are looking for that. And going back to again Mr. Sharma, we need to have some kind of a control, some kind of a monitoring mechanism somewhere. It is not only leaving the market alone. Then if we are leaving everything to the market and say the market economy, then don't talk at all, don't have these debates at all, because markets will take care of themselves. Then let the people also look. What you are trying to do today is, for farmers like us, you would like to put every restriction of yours on us, but when we go to the prices, when we want to sell it for the prices what we want in the market economy, as any other industry does, you don't allow us. If you allow us, then you shout at us through the TV saying that the prices have gone up so much, that the poor man, there is hunger, there everything, there death and whatnot. This really touches us more, so naturally we try to adjust ourselves sentimentally to the situation and respond to the nation's needs. Now the question when I talk to you, since you are talking about cotton, I said the trader, today you have talked of wheat, now the government is trying to liberalize wheat exports also. Now that is Mr. Thomas says last week. That means the wheat is ruling low outside. That means you are allowing the wheat to go. And as Mr. Sharma says, because wheat is more here, it is rotting on the stockyards, it can as well be sent there. I said no.
Okay.
Down south, only thing you have not export the markets. Number two, instead of all market, as Mr. Gulati very rightly said, if you were to build your procurement mechanism with that of the retail mechanism, if the supply line were to be corrected, instead of putting them all in the godowns wherein you don't pay the subsidy, the moment the same godown material goes to my PDF,
Mr. Rao, since you referred to the cooperatives, Mr. Rao, let me mention and get Harish into this issue. Since you mentioned about the cooperative, Harish, the cooperatives have not worked simply because you have a political person which is driving the agenda. Often that's what we end up doing. That is that the big reason why some of those cooperatives, one of which Mr. Rao mentioned, is that the reason why it could have failed, and maybe it didn't drive the market part of it and drove only it tended to push a particular agenda?
For the failure of cooperatives, you must look at an organization called the National Dairy Development Board. They started off with milk, which was a success. You find out what has happened in Safal. Why have they not taken off? What has this NDTV been doing for the last 15 years? Sitting on so much of funds. According to me, their turnover from fruits and vegetables should have been higher than even milk. But nobody is asking these questions. And actually Mr. Keshav Rao, since he's from the Congress, the Congress should look inwards. I mean, this was a party which supported cooperatives. You look at the sugar cooperatives, you look at the dairy cooperatives, whereas today what has happened, and I think I agree with Mr. Sharma, they believe more in that Walmart will rescue Indian agriculture. This is not true. But of course I differ with Mr. Sharma. I would say that you allow Walmart. But what I'm saying is they are not going to deliver, they are not going to be a source of deliverance to you. The source of deliverance to us will be organizations like Amul. As I said, value compression from below. And here, NDTV's functioning for the last 15 years, according to me, should be subjected to parliamentary scrutiny. They have got away with murder, if you ask me. After getting so many facilities, you look at the kind of shops which they have in prime location, and you look, and they are buying from Azadpur Mandi like any other trader. Somebody should do an enquiry into organizations like NDTV, what they were set up for and what they are doing. What has happened to Dhara? You know, I think we need to look at institutions, and instead now we are trying to substitute Walmarts and all. I mean, this is not going to work. I mean, NDTV should be asked, why is it that apart from Amul or say the Karnataka Dairy Federation, why are other cooperatives not doing well? What has happened to all their funds? Where has it been diverted? I think we need a very serious inquiry into these kind of issues.
One word.
Sure, Mr. Rao, please go ahead.
Sure. See, the studies, let me tell Mr. Gulati, the studies have been made. It has been inquired, the parliamentary committees have looked into. Only thing is, they have to be processed and implemented quickly, because the cooperatives have all the potential and the strength to do. Only because somebody has brought in the name of FDIs and of the Walmarts and everything, they are being thrown to sidelines. Otherwise, as far as Sharma is concerned, our Commerce Minister, he is doing his job. He is the Minister of Commerce. Let the Cooperative Minister do his job. Let the Agriculture Minister do his job. I mean, if he can give us a bright future, I don't think we would go back to Walmarts or any other marts to get into those.
Now, even you are saying if he can give us a bright future.
What all that
I hope, I'm pretty sure you don't want to mean that word if. Okay, Mr. Sharma, if you can.
No, certainly, because the fashion today is the FDI and the big Walmarts. The fashion today is talk about the foreign malls coming in. Talk about the big malls coming in. A small mall at the village level has been doing wonderful job.
Okay. The point I wanted to talk about, Mr. Sharma, is some cooperatives have done exceedingly well, and we repeatedly we've referred to the Amul experiment. Why have some others failed? Is this just political, or there is more to it?
I think Harish Damodaran has raised a very pertinent question. I think the tendency with all of us is that we know of one case, so we all start singing songs about it. So we talk about Amul as a success story, but as he rightly said, nobody also talks about the vegetable section of the mother dairy. Look at the kind of destruction they are doing as far as the entire value chain is concerned. Nobody talks about that. I think it's in shambles, the mother dairy phenomena. But nevertheless, the point is what he said about Markfed and NAFED. I think it's very interesting. If you look at the past, as a reporter also when I was a journalist, I've seen that Markfed is, or the chairman is always a political man who is not become a minister, becomes the chairman. Then if you look at the MD, it's always a bureaucrat, IAS officers. Look at the FCI. When we talk of food rotting, over the last few years, invariably for the last 25 years, I have seen the FCI chairman being an IAS officer, the regional FCI chairman also being an IAS officer. If with IAS people having a strong network, if this corruption prevails, I think there's something wrong with bureaucracy also. I think what we are not encouraging is the technocrats to come in, the specialized people to come in, and that's the reason why things are going wrong. Remove these chairmen from the cooperatives, remove these bureaucrats from the cooperatives, and you will see lots of things will improve in this country. We don't want to do that because it's a retiring room or whatever you say, very comfortable place.
Dr. Gulati, have we, institutional wise, have we failed?
Well, I would say that the cooperative structure, which at one point of time did serve the country's interest, particularly from sugar or milk or others, has been crumbling down. And one of the factors, as Harish rightly said, that these are not really the cooperatives owned by farmers in the sense that they are putting their money and equity into the game. These have been heavily supported by the state, so I call them more like state enterprises cooperatives, and therefore state wants to control, whether through bureaucracy or politicians or others, and the professionalism in that starts declining over a period of time, and that's the time. The alternative to this is create farmers, producers organizations where they themselves pick up their persons who are professionally trained and they manage the show. Only then there will be a salvation, not through, as Devinder said, through a state-led bureaucracy or politician involvement. That's where we sacrifice our, professionalism, and the money goes down the drain.
Okay, get your point, Dr. Gulati. One last comment from Mr. Rao. Mr. Rao, brief answer is what I want. Is the Congress party leaving a door open for very strong opposition attack because of the way food prices are moving despite bumper production?
Despite these bumper crops, if the prices are rising, it is because of various other reasons. The stands are many, like geographical location, which the panelists did not speak. If the production has been bumper at Punjab or Haryana, and down south in Kerala or Chennai, Tamil Nadu, I need that food, the rice or the wheat. I don't think all of us the prices are coming down. So there is there is a fertilizer, the inputs, there is the land costs which are going up, the labor costs, the transport costs, geographical locations, the FCI, the warehouse. So it's all of these things. Added to this is the international price impact. Today United States Agriculture Department has warned the people that the prices will rise. So these things have to be
Okay,
factored
get
in
the point.
when we are
Get the
talking
point,
about it.
Mr. Rao.
But at the same
That's
time,
nice.
as Mr. Gulati and Sharma says, the government is alert to it.
Okay, get the point. That's neither a yes nor a no that you're saying. But gentlemen, we've completely run out of time on the show. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you, and taking the time out on this very important issue that concerns, as I said, every one of us. You're watching We Mean Business, and the news and views continue on NDTV Profit.